Hey everybody, my name is Masterofroflness. Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 is currently on open beta, and I feel like this is a good time and opportunity to show you guys some games that are similar to Battlefleet Gothic that you might be interested in if you already like Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. Now, these are just some games that are closely resembled to that of Battlefleet Gothic. Unfortunately, besides the original game, there isn't really a huge market for strategy and also combat real-time games with spaceships. But you know what, I've got ourselves here like about 11 games that are just that, so let's kick it off with number 11. Actually, at number 11, a game that I don't really know should be on this list would be FTL. Now, honestly, when it came to this list, I really couldn't find a game that resembles that of Battlefleet Gothic, where you're commanding these ships and turning them and also maneuvering them, choosing your fleet before battle, and also engaging in warfare. But at least in the FTL case, you do have ship-on-ship combat in strategy format. However, this is the bottom of the list because it's not a real-time strategy game in the vein of Battlefleet Gothic. It doesn't have you commanding fleets of ships. It doesn't have you maneuvering these ships in the way that you could in a 3D space like Battlefleet Gothic. Unfortunately, it is, actually, Battlefleet Gothic is more of a 2D plane, but it doesn't matter. It's very much a 2D sprite. Here's the ship fighting the other ship. That's really about it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it is very much only the bare bones of Battlefleet Gothic. So this is the bottom of the barrel. Like, if you see any game that's similar to that of FTL, like Out There, for example, same deal. It has the same sort of like ship management as Battlefleet Gothic, maybe even more so. And the combat as well is very, very plain. Same with the maneuvering. Same with dealing with all the crap that goes into ship-to-ship combat. And also on top of this, they're not big fleets. They're maybe one ship, maybe two, maybe some drones. That's really about it. So there's none of the scale as well involved. But in terms of like a good ship-to-ship combat game with even some exploration, and in the FTL's case, some roguelike aspects, you might find yourself loving this game a lot, actually. But in terms of the FTL similar games, I'm going to pick only FTL, as if I pick Out There and other games, it just kind of pollute this list and really wouldn't do anything, you know. It would just be another FTL game. FTL similar list could exist, but that would be just a lot of FTL clones. Next on our list would be Nexus Jupiter Incident. Now, this is a strategy game in which you're taking part in the colonization efforts of multitudes of different solar systems while piloting and commanding a fleet of giant war vessels. It's actually a lot of fun to see all the different ships that you can command, utilize at your disposal, and you're also fighting against different alien races while this is all happening in 3D space. So I think that's very, very interesting. It's something that we will see in the other games, for example. But definitely, this is kind of a very, very interesting one. So a game that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, Nexus Jupiter Incident. It's just the fact is that it's very I suppose it's very underground. You know, you get to customize your own ships in a variety of different ways. You have characters and different weapon types to choose from. You have a huge, massive amount of planets that you can explore and look at, moons, comets, etc., etc. And the amount of different types of missions that you can do is kind of crazy, actually. There's a surprising amount of customization and creativity with Nexus Jupiter Incident. But really, the meat of the game is it's a 4X simulation strategy game in which you're battling other alien races and other mega corporations for control of these solar systems. Now, in terms of the fleet combat aspect, it works out just well. In terms of scale, it's there, obviously. Now, 3D combat, not something that's part of this series, not part of Battlefleet Gothic, but you know what, that doesn't matter. Next to Jupiter Incident, in terms of a strategy space game, is really up where you want it, honestly, if you want a similar-ish Battlefleet Gothic game. Now, why is this so low on the list? And the reason for that is mostly because of its age, which is why I put it there. And it's also because it shares a lot of similarities to 4X strategy games that we kind of know and love. And a lot of the more interesting aspects of this game, for example, are not in the combat focuses, but more in the economic side of things and the 4X development of it as well. So it's definitely interesting to say the least, and the focus isn't combat like in Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. It's also in stealth, rescue, and science missions. It's very diverse, actually. It's a very diverse game. It's more of a simulation game, if anything else. So this is low on the list because of that. And so with that ending off, we can go on to the next one. Alright, next would be Frontier Wars. This is an old classic strategy game, very, very old, like well, it's a pixel-based, as you can see, sprite-based RTS game. So all the objective is controlling your giant space fleets in these two-dimensional plane, while also dealing with the economic and political side of things. More akin of that of Empire at War than Battlefleet Gothic Armada, definitely, since you are building a base. You're building a base, you're constructing the fleet, you're researching techs, you're doing that sort of stuff. It's like a Age of Empires in space, actually, at the end of the day, which is extremely interesting, to say the least, actually. Now, the reason why it's lower on this list is because it is a 2D sprite-based strategy game that's reminiscent of that of Age of Empires and stuff, and ultimately, it's not that it's bad. These games are not bad. I'm just like going off of very similar games, and let me tell you something. It's not very similar at all. Like, yes, there is the ship combat of it. There's also building the ships and then fighting it out. But really, at the end of the day, you are constructing bases. You are building war vessels. You are expanding. You are conquering. You're doing all these things, and that's kind of the whole point of it at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to Battlefleet Gothic Armada, it's more of these battles, these individual battles, so to speak. So the more 4x a game gets, the less it's similar to that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, in terms of fleet-to-fleet combat, this game is going to satisfy your itch. And in fact, if you love Empire at War as well, it's going to satisfy your itch a whole great deal, considering that what you're seeing on screen right now is essentially a real-time strategy game, 2D sprite-based real-time strategy game, where you are duking it out with different alien vessels. It's very interesting. And also on top of this, something else to add is also the fact that this game as well, 2001, and it looks great. So this is just one thing that I'm going to say, is that some of these games are quite old. So something like Nexus, for example, is beautiful looking for its age, and this one is the same thing. All these games are just they're good looking old grandmas that never really got rid of the MILF stage. But anyway, that'll be Frontier Wars, for example. Again, a very strategy, sort of 4x space strategy game, not the arena battle combat game that Battlefleet Gothic Armada is. It's more of a real-time tactics game if you think about it for Battlefleet Gothic Armada. But let's go on with the next one. I think we've kind of talked about Frontier Wars long enough.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
Hey, what's up guys, Masterofroflness here, and if you enjoy the type of content that I do and love to see videos on my channel, then consider supporting me on Patreon or donating down in the link below. YouTube's always copyright claiming my videos or taking down my videos.
Stupid dog! You made me look bad!
Alright, next is Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. So this is a turn-based strategy game in the Battlestar Galactica universe, in which you're competing with two forces, the Cylons and the humans, in these one-on-one battles. So first things first, in terms of fleet combat arena battles, it's right there. It's actually probably extremely similar to that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada, the only difference being it is turn-based. So instead of you maneuvering and dealing with these massive ship, this massive fleet that you have at your disposal, you're instead doing it turn by turn. So it's a little bit more manageable, a little bit more understandable, to say the least. You're still managing your ships like individually, so it's not like Frontier Wars, which is more about the empire building and more about the strategy focus. It's not like Nexus, where it's more of the simulation focus. It's very much like Battlefleet Gothic Armada, where it's more of the battle focus. But definitely lower on the list because it is a turn-based strategy game. So it doesn't share the same sort of strategy and the risks that are involved with a Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 game. So that is unfortunately why it is lower on the list. But besides that, besides the turn-based combat of the game, it's a perfectly serviceable and fun game, so to speak. It's just because of the turn-based aspect of it, it does kind of separate itself from Battlefleet Gothic Armada. But in terms of being able to customize your fleets before battle, being able to choose which ships you go into the battle beforehand, and the whole setup, and also the fact that it's a very combat-focused game, it makes it so that at the end of the day, this is very much as close as you're gonna get to Battlestar Galactica. Oh god, I fucked myself over twice now. A Battlefleet Gothic Armada game, but without it being the real-time focus. And unfortunately, without the real-time focus, I mean, do you really have a Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 game? You don't. So we're gonna go on to the next one. Next one on our list, Solar Warden. This is an interesting strategy game. You're playing with one ship, going around defending your entire planet against multitudes of alien forces that are trying to kick your butt. It's not fun. It's not fun all around. But this game that's currently in development is very reminiscent in just the ship combat is quite brilliant. Just the fact that you're just in charge of one planet, defending yourself against all of these aliens all at once. And during this entire experience, you can choose between different ships that you want to command while also moving your squads to and fro different battles. So it's all about defending your one planet with the fleets that you have access to against all of these alien forces. So it's all about combat, all about the ship combat, and in real-time strategy. So excellent so far. There's no 4X Empire focus, so that's awesome as well. The only problem is that it's PvE. So because of that, there's no enemies to fight at. Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 is all about kicking some butts and taking names on multiplayer. Now, there's also the AI aspect to it. Yes, but you're just fighting aliens that want to eat you in Solar Warden, which I guess you're doing for Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2, but it's not in the realm of it being a separate fleet that wants to attack you. It's more of you have to defend your planet against alien invaders, so to speak. So it's very much keeping in line with Battlefleet Gothic sort of fleet ship combat and management, but with less of the strategy, more of the strategy given to moving forces around to different points on the map to defend, like kind of like a real-time tactics game. So not a lot of the building and constructing and researching of 4X games, but unfortunately it kind of like loses points, obviously, because it's a PvE. It's not like the PvP, so doesn't really make it to high on the list. AI War 2. AI War 2 is very similar to that of many of the future games that we're going to talk about, in that it shares a lot of what Battlefleet Gothic is all about. Fleet to fleet warfare with massive armies and massive fleets of ships, boarding each other and attacking each other and all that stuff. AI War 2 unfortunately focuses way too much of that on the 4X, the researching, the economic and the building and the constructing focus of things, for it to be not as similar to Battlefleet Gothic. But in terms of having these large massive fleets sort of duking each other out back and forth between planets, you're not going to get a more fun experience than AI War 2, except from the other games higher on this list, of course. But AI War 2 still in development as of currently making this video, and if you want a game that's very similar to Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 while having a lot of the 4X aspects of development with the AI War gameplay, so not only are you building up your economics and your military and you're researching all that stuff like in the AI War original game, but you're also on top of that having the added bonus of all the new features and content that AI War 2 gives. So it's mostly just like a real big bang for your buck. It's a grand strategy RTS hybrid, so if you love grand strategy and a mix of RTS, then you're gonna love this game. It's more like, in a way, playing Stellaris, and Stellaris Executive Assault 2. Same thing as AI War 2. If you love fleet battles, you're gonna love this game. This game allows you to control the ships as well, so you can directly command them. And much like in AI War 2, fleet battles between the different systems, between the ships that you can construct and all that stuff. It is less 4X and grand strategy than AI War 2, for example, as it's very much focused on smaller sizes of star systems, focusing more on building up vessels, attacking your opponents, while also being able to board them and also being able to directly control your ships. It's still also in development, much like AI War 2, so don't expect too much out of it. But essentially, when it comes down to it, Executive Assault 2 is sharing a lot of the features that Battlefleet Gothic has at its fingertips. You know, it has the ability to board vessels, to engage them in ground combat. Obviously, Executive Assault 2 takes it to the next level by being able to command the actual troops that are attacking in a boarding raid, which is amazing. You're still battling over systems and you're still constructing stuff and researching, so it's not similar to Battlefleet Gothic in that vein. But in terms of fleet-to-fleet combat, as well as just the fact that you have the ability to board, speaks volumes of some aspects of this game that share some gameplay with that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. Again, the more and more we're getting down to the list, the closer the games are to that of being somewhat similar to Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. So as we go on, things are going to be more and more, I guess, I suppose similar would be the right word. Yeah. Star Wars Empire at War doesn't focus on the 4X game strategy of it unless you're focusing on Galactic Conquest, so that's awesome. You can just do a straight skirmish and battle it out with the opponent. Now, it's not like you can upgrade and change this fleet before battle, much in the same way as Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. It is very much Age of Empires in space. You're building up your base or your space station, and then you build ships to attack the enemy opponent's base. That's all. But it is very much focused on fleet-to-fleet combat because the building aspect is limited to that of the space station, the turrets, and the asteroids. Besides that, it's good old ship-to-ship combat fun. So really, it's very much stupid similar to that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada. The big thing that really takes it away is that Battlefleet Gothic doesn't even focus on buildings at all, which is, in my eyes, a detriment. But regardless of how you feel about the game overall, I think ultimately when it comes down to it, Star Wars Empire at War is similar in fleet and fleet combat, mano-a-mano stuff. And the game focuses heavily on that. Now, and it's similar in that regard, but the other three games actually are way more similar. So really, it's only on the number 4 slot because the other 3 games ahead of it are just so much closer to that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada. So yeah, we're just gonna have to keep you on number 4. Sorry about that. If these games ahead of it were just not on the list, I feel like, you know, they might have been a little bit higher up. Who knows? Okay, next one on the list, Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion. Amazing strategy game. A 4X strategy game too. So you may be wondering, Masterofroflness, you made the other 4X strategy games lower on the list because they were 4X strategy games. Why'd you put this higher? Well, I put this higher because the amount that goes into combat for this game is amazing. Like the fleet-to-fleet combat gets to humongous levels of ridiculousness. Like, I mean, the ship, it's like a Supreme Commander in space, really, at the end of the day. The amount of ships that you could just have in one system, duking it out, dogfighting each other, battling each other, using abilities on each other. It's great. You can board each other's ships. It's wonderful. There is a lot of 4X gameplay when it comes to Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion, so if you love Empire management, this is a more real-time strategy, fleet combat focused Stellaris game, and honestly, in a lot of ways, way better than Stellaris. It loses points because it does focus on that 4X strategy gameplay. However, this game also uses like 3D maps as well. So the Battlefield Gothic is still on a 2D plane, unfortunately, but it does allow for different directions, or at least some different directions for Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion. So you can go all over the place. You are battling in these big planetary systems, so to speak. So it makes sense in that regard. But I do put it high on the list because of the scale. The scale really reaches it. If Star Wars Empire War got the fleet combat right, then Sins got the scale right of this game. And the next game on our list will get something else particularly right too. So we're gonna check out that one shortly. Hey, guess what number 2 is? It's Homeworld. Hey! Okay, so Homeworld is probably one of the greatest strategy ship combat games of our lifetime. Currently as it stands. There is a game higher than that, but we're talking about Homeworld for now. Homeworld, first we're talking about Homeworld Remastered, so Homeworld Remastered Collection, but this will go for Homeworld 1, 2, Cataclysm, Emergence, whatever you want to call it, Remastered Collection. Will not focus on Deserts of Karak because that's a land-based combat game, so completely different ballgame. But essentially, in terms of fleet-based combat, Homeworld works. In terms of 4X strategy, Homeworld is completely without it. Yes, you could research in Homeworld, but it's mostly kept to the skirmish gameplay of the game. And the mothership is not a structure, it's more of a gigantic MCV that can only have modules placed into it. Kind of like the MCVs actually in Command and Conquer 4. So it's more akin to a Command and Conquer 4 game than anything else. But in terms of like games that are very, very close to fleet combat, Homeworld is damn damn near similar to Battlefleet Gothic Armada. The scale is massive. The fleet combat is excellent, and the lack of focus on 4x strategy means that you just get right into the nitty-gritty of combat for Homeworld, really. It's all, you just build your harvesters, and then you just go straight to the combat. And that's where it really shines here. You can build stuff from destroyers, capital ships, all the way up to these massive gargantuan beasts that shouldn't even be built, but they are, and goddamn it, it's wonderful. You get that for the other games like Sin, Star Wars, Executive Assault, AI War, Solar Warden, Battlestar Galactica, Frontier Wars, Nexus, hell, even FTL. You get that for FTL as well. But Homeworld is interesting in that your first starting ship is the biggest ship that you can construct. Everything else is like a downward slope, and it's excellent in that regard because then you don't have to worry about defending a base or these stationary structures. Your base is the biggest ship you have, so you better treat that baby right, and it's the tankiest mofo you got. So it's way more combat focused, and because of that, it's more exciting. It's more in line with that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2, which is arena based combat of ships between ships in engagements that are like 1200 or 1500 points. So that's like 6 or 8 different ships of medium size and maybe less or more depending on the size of the ship. So ultimately, in terms of a game that's similar to that, the only two I think I can think of is Battlestar Galactica and well, I guess I would say Homeworld in that regard. I wouldn't consider the other games similar because of the fact that I think that when you get down to it, all of these games, they don't focus on, well, with the exception of Star Wars and the hardpoint system of the turrets and the hangars and the shield generators. I think a lot of the games don't have individual structural damage for their ships. When an area of a ship is damaged, it's considered the whole ship is part of that one health pool. Now, Homeworld, you can damage different structures on a mothership, for example. You can damage that on the larger ship, so you could in turn damage individual structures that could give you a small significant edge in battle, and that's something that Battlefleet Gothic does a lot of. It's a lot of trying to do these abilities and these repairs and these actions in the middle of combat, which is a lot of what Homeworld is about. Sins doesn't do that because it's more grand scale. Same with Star Wars Empire War, where yes, there's the hardpoint system, and in fact I guess Star Wars would be more similar to that of Battlefleet Gothic than Sins is, but it just doesn't have that level of stupid scale, I suppose. Though really at the end of the day, Star Wars and Sins are kind of close, right? Like when it came down to the final 4 games, it was the first game is without a doubt the most similar. And then you had Homeworld, and then you had Sins and Star Wars. I didn't know whether to put 3 or 4 or 4 and 3, but I'll definitely say 4 for Star Wars and 3 for Sins, only because I think that Sins is a way better starship fighting game than Star Wars Empire War is. I don't know if that's sacrilegious or not, but we will have to see. Anyway, let's get on to the last game, and this is something that will come completely out of nowhere. But first, honorable mention, Stellaris. Any grand strategy game, honorable mention. Like, I'm sorry, but you're too grand for this. Next on our list, space games that don't have any strategy involved to it. What are you doing? PvE strategy games. I already have a few PvE strategy games that are in space, and they are, well, they're filler entries. I mean, they're close to Battlefleet Gothic, but again, at the end of the day, Battlefleet Gothic is very much about fighting different fleets. So there shouldn't be something like a management game where you're only defending against like outsiders that are trying to destroy your happy little town that you've built in space, for example. So none of those like Off-World Trading Company or any of those type of games, right? And obviously space had to do a lot of it, so it can't be a game that is only partially in space. I couldn't put Planetary Annihilation, for example, in there because it doesn't fit. It really doesn't. So let's get on with the last one. Treasure Planet. Now, Treasure Planet is the most similar game to that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. Treasure Planet Battle of Procyon. I've played this way back when. It's Disney's first RTS game, and it's a ship-based strategy RTS game as well, and it's only about combat. There's no 4x like dealing with your resources, dealing with research, dealing with your population, for example. None of that shit. No diplomacy, no building units in the actual buildings itself. None of the stupid shit like, oh hey, I'm going to share a whole health pool, for example, and all the ships have different components and parts to them. You also have to turn your ships and your entire fleet as well to different directions, much in the same way as Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. So you're managing your ships as well. You have to manage the way they maneuver and stuff. It's on a 2D plane. And finally, on top of this, it has the same all ahead full and hard left turns and hard right turns in Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. In fact, there's a lot of similar mechanics to that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 that some of you guys may even notice in this video over here that I've provided. Like, there's a lot of similar combat. Okay, you're moving your ships to and fro, right clicking to move them to different areas and stuff, and then you're allowing them to get into position to fire off barrages with their side weapons and stuff. And you can change up their speed, you can change up how their fleet functions, and you can change up essentially the direction at which they're aiming at. So a lot of it is stupid similar to that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2, and this takes the cake as being one of the most, I guess, similar games to that of Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 in general. Like, the amount of similarities are absolutely crazy, and I couldn't find anything else that didn't have the same requirements that I'm talking about, with the lack of 4x strategy games and the lack of building your ships. It's all about, if you're going to customize your ships, you're doing that beforehand, otherwise they give you like a preset fleet before the match even starts. You know, you're still moving the directions of your ship, still changing their speed, still firing upon and using abilities on opponents. It's very much like a poor man's Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. And really, without saying it, I think this is probably a game that if you love Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2, you have to try this game out. It even has like individualized, you know, components, so you could target different things to weaken different parts of the ship. It's excellent. Besides that, that's really about it. Some other honorable mentions of Star Wars Empire War does have a Warhammer 40k mod, so you could pretend to play Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. I ended up doing a lot of that, and I think there are some mods for some other games in this list that might fancy you and make things a little bit more liking to Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. But if you're excited for Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 and you're looking for some other games that are similar to that, that's my list. If you guys have any other games that I missed out on including, or you would also include in this list, let me know. And I will see you guys next time. Bye bye and take care. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, then join in on the Patreon as well as on Discord, where you can join in on some gaming sessions. Bye bye.